Business Dialogues for Good, a series of inspiring conversations with business leaders dedicated to business for good. In these discussions, we explore successes, challenges, opportunities, and world-changing ideas. Join us, get inspired, and be part of the change.
Welcome to the Business Dialogues for Good Leaders. This monthly dialogue video will be a discussion between two leaders who are business leaders and are doing their business as a force for good. This episode will be a discussion about the very important question of water and soil as crucial elements in life. And in this episode, we have two phenomenal leaders at the table with great ambitions. Maybe you can give a brief introduction. What are you doing? You're making wine.
Château-Maris is a vineyard in the south of France, in between Carcassonne and Montpellier. 50 hectares in production, total of 100 hectares, growing grapes in a sustainable way and transforming those grapes into wine, and we're bottling our own wine and distributing our wine throughout the world.
And what kind of wines? Red wine, white
wine? We're predominantly red wine, Syrah-based red wine with some Grenache in it. We make a little bit of white wine and a little bit of rosé as well.
And what is so special about your wines? We're going to talk a little bit later more about that in detail.
Yeah, I think the special thing about it is that we are managing our vineyard, so we're managing our whole production process with great awareness to the environment and to the people who live and all living things within that environment. That's one of the reasons why we became a B Corp company in 2016, and we were certified organic back in 2002. So I think, the special side of it is our real concentration and our awareness to all living things which are living within our ecosystem and around our ecosystem.
And then from the wine, we go to the cleaning, and I assume that cleaning is also important to producing wine. So Frank, maybe you can tell us.
For sure, having clean bottles where the wine goes in, that's for sure.
For sure.
Yeah.
I-Team Global, tell us a little bit more about the name. Why are you here?
Yeah, first of all, it's I-Team. The name is Inquire, Innovate, let's say, and Inspire. And team is, I think, what everybody is achieving for together. Everybody achieve more. We are providing what we call high-tech solutions to a low-tech industry. What is the low-tech industry? Cleaning at the end, let's say. And we like to make a movement where we put the cleaner in front of everything. Because at the end, the cleaner is not being recognized, let's say, where they should be recognized all the time. And we're trying to do, let's say, our best to put them to the forefront of it and make them what we call more respected, more visible, and that is our aim as a company to do so. So we're using our company for daily, let's say, making that influence. And to give you an idea, we're laying around 11 million cleaners around the globe working for professional cleaning companies. That's the market we are serving.
There are 11 million cleaners in the world? I thought much more, Frank. No?
No, I do not know if 11 million is much or less. That's all relative to numbers. But I think that 11 million, if you would look at the company, let's say that having 11 million employees is a large company in the globe. Now they are splitting up with a lot of brands, let's say, in the cleaning world. And when we started the company, we had, let's say, in mind the 3 Ps, as we call them. The one was the people, the next one was the planet, and the third one is prosperity, let's say. So how we use the company to share a little bit of wealth to everybody, not only to what we call the shareholders, which are
making a better life for the cleaner.
And making a better life for the cleaner. That's at the end the aim. What we're doing.
Wine would help a little bit to make a better life.
Well, I would suggest that one drinks a glass of wine after having finished the cleaning, perhaps.
Instead of before the cleaning.
Yeah.
So thank you for your short, brief introductions and the short description of your companies. When a company wants to be impactful and interesting, the company wants to have a meaning. The companies are always looking for impactful challenges that we face as humanity. So I would like to talk a little bit about these two elements of a living soil, about water, about the importance. Maybe we can start with you, because you once said that you started to produce wines and in the beginning it was horrible how it tasted because you didn't pay enough attention to the soil. So maybe you can tell a little bit about that story, how that went.
Yeah, I think that, well, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, actually, that back in 1997, I didn't connect the correlation between delicious tasting fruit and healthy soil. I just thought that everything was happening above ground. And you looked at the vineyards and we were treating everything above ground. But in actual fact, we also, we have to understand that what's above, there is the same amount below, and we must look after below ground as well as above ground. So that was my wake-up call, my light bulb moment was, oh my gosh, I've got to look after my soil. And by the way, my grapes are tasting so bad because I'm not looking after my soil. And then comes the whole sort of discussion and definition of what is a healthy soil, how do you get your soil to become healthy. One of the great things is that when your soil's dead, you can bring it back from the dead and you can make it live again.
That's the difference between human beings and soil.
There's a lot of difference there. And as you mentioned, we can do a lot of work towards rejuvenating life into the soil. But without water, it doesn't matter how hard we work, we won't succeed. Water is an essential element as well in the life of the soil. And we have to understand more, and especially we're down in the sort of Mediterranean basin, so we're down in an area which is becoming drier and drier, lacking water more often, more successive droughts one after the other. So we've got to learn how to manage water in a new way. We've been so frivolous with water. We don't care about it. And there are huge statistics about the amount of litres of water which is just leaking inside the infrastructural systems that exist today. One of the things down in our area in the south of France is that the infrastructure of irrigation hasn't really changed since the 1400s. We're still relying on the Canal du Midi as being our main source of irrigation water and therefore our main source of water infrastructure. So I think we have to update our water infrastructures to adapt.
But nobody made the connection between, I would say, the global warming and having what I call a bassin of water, and that the water is disappearing, let's say, because of the so-called different temperature we had in the 1400s versus maybe the 2000s.
Exactly, it's disappearing a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And that's why we also have to understand the importance of working with plants. Sometimes when I say that, people sort of look at you as if you're a little bit sort of poetic and a little bit offbeat. But we have to understand that the plants preserve water. Plants produce water. Plants recycle water, and we need to work with the plant world and to help us retain water for longer periods of time in our territories. Right now, a majority of our methods is allowing water to sweep away the topsoil, so erosion is absolutely massive, right? And we're not practicing methods which allow us to retain water for longer periods of time. In our territories, which would
maybe
be very
I can
helpful.
pick that up, Robert, and go to Frank, because when we talk about a sustainable world, most of the time people think about climate. Yeah? They think sustainability is climate. They don't think it is water. But very soon, we are here in the Netherlands, we will have a problem with water. A problem meaning that we don't have enough water, that we cannot clean it anymore. So maybe, Frank, you can tell us a little bit about that problem and also how you in iTeam Global treat water.
First, I think you said about climate, but a lot of people do not realize that you as a human body and Robert also is is I would say, a walking container of water, because that's we are, let's say, at the number one. So exactly. That nobody realized really, exactly, but nobody really realized that, and how that stays stable. It stays only stable when the humidity and the amount we're getting in, let's say, is what is damping out, is getting on even. So that is where the importance of water comes in as a human being, human life, and humidity. So that's one thing. Number two, at the end, in a lot of what I call Western worlds, water has no value. So at the end, they were born and they opened the tap and the water is there. And at the end of the day, the water is costing maybe a fraction what it should cost, let's say, at the end of the day. So that's why we are brought up by wasting it, let's say, at the end of the day. And the problem maybe with the wasting is maybe not so a big issue, but the issue with the wasting is that we are destroying the water, let's say, what we are putting into it, and that gets wasted or get drained or whatever what it comes to. And we as a company, let's say, we have associated cleaning with water, and I think if you would be at home, you would associate also cleaning with water, because most of the time if you do cleaning, you're using water. So we have said ourselves, we need to look at the water process used in cleaning, and can we not do that smarter? And that is where the start of the company came in. Let's say, can we not be a much more water efficient company in developing, let's say, cleaning tools, cleaning machines, let's say, by using the water much less. And the reason for it is, at the end, there are 800 million people in the world already who do not have access to clean drinking water. And maybe they're not living at this moment in the Netherlands, but they are living in a lot of countries in Africa, a lot of countries in the Far East, Bangladesh and so on, and they not have access to water. And our purpose was, can we not help them at the end to clean drinking water? And that's why we as a company first of say, we don't want to use the water, but if we use the water, it should be a minimum. We call it 1 liter. And we have a program, 1 liter for a liter. So we are compensating every liter of water we are using for a new liter of water to somebody else in the world. And that's what our aim was and is, and keep on continuing. So we have used water now as a method to help other people to create water.
So how much water does your production process save? 80 or 90% less water?
I would say that we are using in our cleaning process, we are using 80% less water as other methods, average. And some it's 90, some it's 60, but the average with the way how it is 80%.
Yeah, so how is that, Robert, in your...
Yeah, I think the key is the word that you used is about water efficiency. We've got to become more efficient. I totally agree, by the way, that water is much too cheap as well, and that's one of the reasons why we have to really look at how we renovate our infrastructure systems and what that should really cost. One of the things we're looking at, for farming, you always talk about irrigation. You're talking about irrigation of the crops, and one of the things we're looking at is perhaps we shouldn't be irrigating our crops, but perhaps we should be irrigating our cover crops, which in turn will actually consume less water from an irrigation standpoint and retain more water during the whole agricultural cycle.
And you see in irrigation also, I do not know, let's say, the daily process of it, but I have seen a lot of irrigation is done, what I call getting it above the ground to the things. And that's maybe not the smartest way, because then the sun also can damp it out. And if the sun damps it out, it's gone. Let's say, you can say now it sits somewhere in the sky, I get that. But if the rain falls in the sea, then the water is not usable for us, because we get salt water instead of what we call the usable water.
Yeah. And I think that some of the things we've lost this sort of natural instinct to treasure the element which is water, and we're mistreating it in that way. And sometimes I think that we've disconnected ourselves from a lot of indigenous people's understanding of water, because they would treasure it a lot, and we should really, in some ways, open up our dialogue with them and ask them, what they thought of their water, how did they treat their water, how did they manage their water, etc. We must get back into this simple, natural respect of water.
So you're both actually using water, and you need water, but we all exist out of 80% of water, as you say, Frank. You use it, I think, to create healthy environments. You create healthy food. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the topic of health. Health for human beings. So health is also something that, if you're not sick, you think you're healthy, and that is. How does your company think about that topic, about health?
No, I think health is it's important that we need a healthy soil.
Yeah.
If you have an unhealthy soil, if you have a toxic soil.
But how does it die? Because you talked about dead soil. When is the soil dead, and how did it die?
Well, it is dead because it's lost a lot of microorganisms. It's lost a lot of microbial activity. So it's lost its diversity. In fact, 98%, 96% of the planet's diversity lives below ground, right? So there's more diversity happening below ground than there is above ground, and it loses that rather like we become sick is because it's ingesting the toxins. And so it's ingesting too many pesticides, it's ingesting too many herbicides, it's ingesting too many chemical formulas which are killing off its diversity. And that's how it becomes dead. So for it to be healthy, it must be alive. And I think it's important to have, a healthy soil is a healthy plant equals a healthy plant. A healthy plant equals a healthy ecosystem, because all the insects and the animals and all life above ground is interacting with your plant. If they're interacting with a toxic plant, they're going to get sick as well. And that's why I say that today agricultural policy must change from subsidizing toxic methods, from subsidizing toxic crops, and we must actually subsidize good health.
And that is a new awareness. And is that also true in cleaning, Frank? In cleaning, I think COVID maybe has been a big changing mechanism.
You're talking about health, but you can also say at the end, let's say, if you get, for example, COVID, which in that time we call it safe, let's say, what do you need to do to keep it under control, and what do you need to do to eliminate it out of your building or surfaces or whatever, and what you need to do to keep it away, not because then I can keep you healthy, let's say, at that moment. But that would be is one or two steps before it. One of them is we are used in the old days that we are cleaning not only with water but adding chemicals to it. And a lot of chemicals which were made in the old days were made based upon oil-based residues or oil-based formulas or whatever you call them. And maybe you can say that's maybe not so bad, let's say, in a discussion. But as soon as you would make them what you call a mist, like you can see a lot of people are using in cleaning a trigger bottle, and then you're making a water with that thing and then making a mist. And at that moment, you start to inhale it. And it's the moment you inhale it, let's say, that's not so good for your body. But people do not recognize that. And there are studies in Norway, for example, that daily cleaning 1 hour on that method is the same as smoking 60 cigarettes a day.
Oh.
So now the cigarette discussion is already behind us, let's say, because a lot of people have discovered that that's not so good for your health, let's say, in totally. But I would say this trigger bottle loaded with what I call old-fashioned chemicals, I will call them for a moment, let's say, is not on the way, because people think I have done a nice job because I have cleaned, So, and then the question is, was it the right liquid, the right method, and so on. So our biggest their challenge there is that kind of a method change, let's say.
So that is your biggest challenge in that area, and I would like to talk a little bit about the challenges that you, as a company, face. So, what would be your biggest challenge, Robert, if you think about your wine company and your care of the soil and being one of the 5 best? What is your challenge?
I think we could all say that life is a good challenge. To actually identify specific ones of being harder than the other. In the end, they're all quite tough. They're all quite hard. They're all quite difficult to face up to. So I think we're trying to have, we believe if Mother Earth is sick, then we're sick. And if we're sick, we can't do a good job. We're never going to be performant. We're never going to be productive as we should be. And we're always going to be calling off sick, or we're going to need more free time because we need to, rest ourselves from the sickness that we've had. So, the challenge for us, the biggest challenge for us, is to create this environment, and there we come on to the sort of sustainable side of it, is where there is this sort of perpetual continuity of the actions that we are taking, which are imposed upon us by nature around us and by the people around us. And I think that we often forget the importance of the livelihoods of the people who are doing the process, who are part of the process, who are your colleagues in the process. And so I think, yeah, probably that's the biggest challenge, is we've got to look after our colleagues, we've got to look after our people, we've got to look after our communities properly, because in doing so, then work, as it were, becomes pleasure, then work becomes much more productive, and then the whole process becomes really profitable, and not just profitable from an agribusiness economic point of view, which is not even profitable, but it becomes really profitable because it's really helping livelihoods and communities. And that's the constant challenge that we have. Are you okay? Is everything good? Is everything good with your family? Is everything good with your children? Is everything good with your house? Is everything going well? That's it. Because if everything is going well in that space, or as well as it can be, right, and that we're concerned about it, and we want your livelihood to be a good livelihood, right, then when you come to work, you're going to be concerned about what you're doing. You're going to be concentrating on what you're doing. You're going to be, hoping to add the same respect as you're receiving, right? You're going to be giving back that respect.
If I pick that up, Robert, and that is a very good point, and I try to translate that to Frank, and I would add a question to that. And the coming 5 years, Frank, and when you think about cleaning, health, and water, how would you see the coming 5 to 10 years for your company? With water and...
I would say on one hand, let's say there is now more discussions about water, which is good for us, let's say at the end, because we wanted to have more awareness about water. When we started the company, let's say 15 years ago, there was no awareness about that there was an issue with water or coming an issue with water, for sure not in the Western world, as I call it, let's say in total. The next thing there was not a direct correlation between water adding chemicals and the effect on health. That was also not there totally. And I think now people are, what they call in life, connecting the dots. Now, that would help not only our company, but a lot of other companies would think differently on that kind of method, and they would get what they call an audience. And at the end of the day, if you want to make influence, I can tell you one thing, you need an audience, otherwise you're alone. And alone you can go fast, but together you can go far further. So having said that, it means we need an audience. And the audience is now getting more open to get what they call this being transmitted to them. And if you have an audience, also need to be able to listen. Otherwise, you can have an audience, but if they don't listen, then the whole thing also doesn't mean anything. So I think in the next 5 years, we see that the audience is more receptive to this kind of elements. And we think as a company, let's say, that we can bring a lot to that forefront, let's say, on those elements. And at the end, we will contribute to happy, healthy buildings and happy, healthy people in that building. That's the aim of the company. We are driving day by day for it, let's say, and the only way you can do it is getting what we call the message across.
And your company also, Frank, donates water. So you use water in the cleaning, but you also donate the same amount?
Yeah, we call the program a liter for a liter, and we started with that because cleaning is associated for a portion with water. We wanted to create water conscience with it, but cleaning without water is at this moment still an illusion. Let's say a lot of people have tried all kind of stuff, but they failed. So at the end we say we clean with water, but it is a minimum. And then the liters of water we are using, we are making and creating new by drilling wells. And this is done by a foundation called Made Blue. It's a non-profit foundation, and they organize that for us. So they get money from us, and with that money, they create wells. They donate water to people, and this is a liter for a liter. And we have one of our products, we call that proudly, it's a mobile water well, let's say, for around the globe.
So we are nearing the end of this edition. You wouldn't believe it, but time flies. And I would like to challenge you a little bit, because people could easily make cynical remarks about sustainable companies. You are trying to use less water, you are producing wine and drinking wine is maybe not healthy. So there is always an opposition from, let's say, the hardcore sustainable people. So, but I believe, and I think we all believe, that we need to bring businesses with us to change the world. So how would you inspire the masses with what you're doing?
No, I think, well, we touched on it a little bit in an earlier discussion, and I really liked the message which was being sent, which was one about, just try and do a little bit. And just try and start. Don't necessarily try and solve the whole problem immediately. And that's my thing. Is every single day, every single person on this planet can make a positive difference, and that we should be encouraging everybody to take part in that and do it. Just make an effort. Just have this sort of helping outstretched hand method, right? Rather than the clenched fist one, the domination one. Try and help the space in which you're living.
I would say also, do they really know what they're judging about? So first of all, let's say find out. We call it the inquire. Listen to them. Why you come to the conclusion that it is like this or to that. So find out where is the inquire base, let's say. Then, as we call it in our company, innovate and inspire them. And so go with them, let's say. But at least we need to first getting to common ground. So you can say that this and this and this is maybe, you would call it greenwashing, whatever you would call it. Let's say I do not care. And then I said, okay, Elaine, that's interesting. Why you call this greenwashing? Do you know what the elements are about? Do you know what are we accomplishing? And are you knowing the facts? Let's say, so this is what we call inquiring. And I think if you would really go to these, you call them activists or something like that, I would say, okay, start the dialogue, the same as you say, find out, let's say, why they came to that conclusion, and then get step by step in that.
Yeah, and inquire in the whole process as well. Quite often we inquire just about a little piece of the puzzle, but actually keep in mind that it's the ecosystem is the whole puzzle, and that we can affect the whole ecosystem even if we're just in one small corner of it. Right, so it's inquiring about the whole thing and understanding. A lot of people out there today think, oh, right, I'm going to be planting trees or I'm going to be planting hedges, right? But they haven't inquired enough about the whole ecosystem, and therefore they can actually damage by what they think is a good act. Right?
Yeah.
So I really think it's absolutely definitely the right way to go. And that's a very positive action to take as well. Every single day, ask yourself a question: what is it that we can do better about something which you want to do better about?
So what was an eye opener to me from both of your companies is that I learned to associate with iTeam Global cleaning with health. Maybe it is obvious. But I think it's not so obvious to many people because they don't even think about cleaning. They don't see it, as Frank said. And in your case, the eye-opener was that you say that under the ground, so in the soil, live much more living things than above on the whole planet above ground. Yeah. So if we don't keep that soil alive, 70%, I think, of the agricultural land on this planet is dead, or a very high percentage, and I have never realized that. So, final remark.
Final remark is look after farmers' livelihoods, because they are feeding us, and we are what we eat.
And final remark is, I think at the end we can only make you healthy if you're happy, and we need to create an environment where you can be happy, and that's most of the time for you a clean environment.
A clean and healthy environment. Thank you, Robert and Frank, for this open and honest dialogue. Again, it is clear that both of you can define your purpose and reason for being. And thank you for watching this monthly episode of the Business Dialogue by Leaders for Good. Every month we cover a critical topic that can help us to create a better world with two business leaders. Be inspired.